Hello, welcome to today's HR Huddle. And Renee, thanks for being with me here today.
Of course, Tamera, glad to be here.
This beautiful fall day. We are going to explore maybe a continued topic on remote, but Renee said to me today, she's like, I continue to be surprised about the challenge of engaging and bringing in and connecting people that are truly remote, whether they're in a different state or not close to the office or hired remotely. We just thought we would talk about some strategies about how do we make sure that we are including them, involving them, getting them connected, giving them opportunities for visibility, and what could HR's role be in that? And there might be some direct things that HR professionals can do. And then there might be some things that you could encourage some of the partners and managers and senior managers or teams to be able to do. So we thought we just would spend, our few minutes that we're going to be together today on that topic. And Renee, is there anything else that you want to add, big picture, about what you're seeing or why you think this is important?
Well, Tamera, you just made me think about there's like a couple of different angles to approach this. I mean, when I first suggested the topic, it was more about the kinds of initiatives or programs that HR could be sure are happening, but also there's skill building. There's, there's this thing people say, I keep hearing them and they say, it's just so much easier if we're together. And we have to stop saying that because it lets us off the hook, because we do have remote people. If firms don't have any remote people, it's fine to say that. But if you've got remote team members, you really have to, and I think HR could be instrumental in that, to say, we probably shouldn't say that anymore, folks, because we've got to figure out how, even though it's hard or it feels harder, we still have to come up with a way to connect with these people, to build relationships with these people. Because I just feel sad, Tamera, that they are floating out there and they say to us in programs, or today I was in a leadership development program for seniors and supervisors, and a lady said, we were talking about internal relationships, and she said, I'm just really not that connected because I'm remote. So this firm made that strategic decision to hire that person, but she's just not feeling that plugged in. And so, gosh, what can HR do to facilitate? I know there are things, you and I are going to make a list.
Right.
And it's a combination of events and things that can happen. And then also skill building and like really having people see the folly in the things that we say and the way we're letting ourselves off the hook with remote is hard.
Yes. Well, can we just start there, Renee?
I think you would pick right up on that one.
I was just sharing with you, I was at a conference, with a bunch of, partners and leaders last week. And I had to start saying to them, okay, I'm going to continue this list. We're going to create a list today of, things we should never say again. And so, and that was on some different topics, but I'm sure apply. But I think that's so valid, Renee, that, our mindset and our approach and that what we say and what we speak about has to be consistent with what we're doing. And to hire somebody remote, like this young woman, this young senior, and intentionally do that. And then, we say that it's hard, or I heard last week, the young staff that are coming into the office are going to have all the advantages because they're have the visibility with the partners. And I was like, why? And why are we saying that? Why aren't we saying, hey, Joe, who's remote and in Wisconsin, and I'm here in Minneapolis, how do I get you connected with the partners? How do I get you involved in that engagement? And so we have to be really careful about those things, saying it's hard, or saying that, the opportunities are going to be when you're in person, or it's easier to be together, or learning happens, with the cooler talk, or because you're sitting next to me. We say there's a list of things, and we'd encourage you as HR professionals to listen for those things and maybe make your own list. You probably cringe, and let's start talking about it and say, how can we shift that? Instead of saying that, what could we say and do instead? So I just think when you were talking about that, it's just like a perfect place to start.
Yeah, and we got so good at this during the pandemic, Tamara, because
Yeah.
we had to be creative. So we stepped over. It was hard. We didn't have the choice to default back to the way we had always done it. And so firms were doing these cool things like, connection contests, or like we had a firm we profiled on our podcast that we were doing at the time, and they took their whole internship remote, and they actually set up for those interns every day they had lunch with a partner, and it was 30 minutes and you got assigned. It was all like managed behind the scenes. Somebody said, here's a gift card, go get yourself food, show up at 12. Monday you're having a lunch with Tamera. Tuesday, you're having a lunch with Renee. So it was engineered. And we know how to do that kind of engineering in HR, because we do that in these onboarding programs and in these various areas. So if it were me, I would just start engineering some of that. And I realize you have to get buy-in. But I mean, could we get half of the partners to sign up for a lunch once a week with a remote staff person? And it doesn't even have to be just the partners. It's really across the board. Like, how can we just get these people more plugged in? We don't even have to send out the gift cards, Tamara.
No, right. And it doesn't have to be every day now. It could be, once a week, twice a month, something like that, and you're making me think I'm facilitating a remote workshop tomorrow. And, there's going to be, it's for a senior group, and there's seniors across the country. And one of the partners is going to be coming to, greet them and say hello. And we rotate that through so these seniors can get exposure to some of these partners, and they can see some of the names and faces. And we've done this, and we've heard, some of them will follow up and say, hey, you said something about this, initiative that we're working on within the firm. Can I ask some questions, or I have some thoughts or questions about it? So it's a way for people to step into it. And, I like your word engineered. We can engineer these things. We can craft them, which I think is so important for us to do.
Well, and we've talked before, Tamara, about having a champion of our remote people. So that's another engineering thing that HR can do, is to, and it's somebody wears the hat, and then they're thinking about remote, and they're committed to regularly checking in with those remote people. They're asking them, how's it going? What else can I do for you? As they see policies come across, they're wearing that hat. So they think, how's this going to affect our remote people, or how are they going to feel about this message? So we could even run communications by that person, recognizing that we have this body of people over there that have different interests and different perspectives, and just making sure that they're being represented and thought about. And so that doesn't feel like a full-time job to me. That's some little slice of someone's job to do that, to be the remote champion and wear that hat. And boy, I just wish, if you have at least 1 or 2 remote people, you should do it. Gosh, if you've got a lot of remote people, which I know a bunch of our clients do, they've made these investments, or they've had people move away, or, they have overseas talent that are remote and are getting our messages too. And so, gosh, I feel like that would be an engineering thing that HR could do. Go talk to your leaders about, I think we need a remote champion, and have someone really thinking through that lens.
Right. And I, it's the idea of, and I don't know that this is the title, but like an office managing partner, and remote is an office.
Oh, right.
Right. And I'm thinking about them, and culturally, and what do they need to know, that lens that you're talking about, just like I would for the Minneapolis office or the Boston office, or, whatever that might be. And it's, it's not a full-time job, but it is. I'm the one thinking about it, and, worrying about it, and, filtering everything, through that lens. And I think it needs to also start at the, onboarding and orientation, and probably recruiting too. That probably feels maybe a little bit more obvious and easier. But, when we onboard somebody and we go through orientation, 90 days, 120 days, whatever it might be, the idea of how do we get people exposure and be intentional that it's on their calendars, that they have exposure to different people in the firm, or different offices, or different initiatives, and they can attend meetings, they can shadow things. And I know this is one of the things we have to stop saying. It's easier just to grab somebody when they're in the office. but I want to start grabbing people because they're, you know, I need to be thinking about them. I need to say, hey, we need to make sure we give Renee exposure to these things. Let's include her in these meetings, you know, over the next 90 days, or let's make sure she has these lunches like you are talking about, or whatever it might be. And it's on our onboarding or orientation checklist. And, you know, we need to, you know, make sure that people are available and get scheduled and get invited, and, you know, all of that happens. And that's a way for a person to start to feel plugged in and get connected and know people. They'll gravitate towards, you know, either certain initiatives or certain people. I mean, that's just going to be natural, but at least they'll have the introduction and the exposure, and the other people in the firm will know who that individual or those individuals, if we brought in a group of individuals, you know, who they are. So I think that's something else.
Yeah.
That we could
I love that, Tamera. And we do, with our orientation checklist, we encourage to make this diversity of assignments. So for instance, when our latest team member, Brianna, came on, she's got her own orientation checklist. She's scheduled to be with each one of us over the course of the first 3 or 4 weeks for various things. So she gets to touch, now we're a smaller team, but she got to touch each of us in those first 3 weeks. So yeah, I mean, getting them that exposure up front. And then also, you have made me think about another engineering idea for HR, is that if you had a smaller team, you could have a map in your head or on an Excel grid that says, for each of my people, where are they plugged in? Mm-hmm. And so if you see somebody who's not plugged in at all, I mean, they're working here, right? So they're in engagements, but they're not on any committees. They're not a part of any other initiative. And that would be a warning sign for me, or a flag that I would say, okay, what are we going to do to get Brianna plugged into something around here? Now, truthfully, Tamera, that should be the role of the career manager. And I know not all firms have that role in place. We wish you did. And that's the shepherd, you know, somebody who's looking out for, so each human being has a shepherd, and that person is checking in with them on at least an every other week basis, 15 minutes, maybe longer, talking about how the work's going, talking about what you need, talking about what's next in your career. And so that if you have that role in place, those career managers could be doing that, about saying, well, it feels like you're not really connected into anything. What are you interested in? What would you like to get involved in? Or, gosh, there's this great project launching over in this area, and I would love to connect you to those people. Would you be game for that? So, you know, career managers making those connections. Oh, you're interested in, you know, marketing and business development. There's a proposals team. I want to get you plugged into those folks. So career managers can make those connections. And that's a skill building thing, HR. Yes. So, you know, we have to give our career managers direction. They're floating a little bit sometimes. They're like, what am I supposed to be doing? I meet with these people, but what am I supposed to be talking about? Or what is my job? And so we really should have a little job description and best practices. And Law of 7 or Law of 14, we should be reaching out to our career managers, HR, once a month, saying, hey, listen, have you talked to your people lately about what they're connected to? And do you have any remote people? And do they need to be really locked in here at the firm, tethered in? Because otherwise we make these investments in these folks, and I'm afraid they're going to fly right off the cliff, Tamera. You know, they're going to fly to a firm that does connect them in, that does care about them, that does think about them. That's the risk, you know, that I worry about when I hear, like in today's program, this person say, yeah, I don't really know anybody. I'm just churning out work over here. And that was an old story for remote, you know, that they were going to be the churners, and that we didn't have to do that kind of career development for them. But I think that's a mistake and a missed opportunity.
Well, and like you said, they're going to go to another firm that will be able to pursue, you know, real career growth in a remote capacity. And, you know, there's firms that are doing it and doing it well. I think another learning opportunity, you know, as you were talking about, you know, helping career managers, another one is unlearning remotely. You know, I think you and I have talked about and see all the time the struggle with how do we get people to learn in a remote environment versus like in person, in a seat, which we're not sure is really effective anyway, like a 4-day audit, you know, here's my audit, you know, training for the year in 4 days or 5 days, you know, in a seat. It's hard to start, to digest that information after several days. You can break it down into bite-sized pieces. But we can teach people, and this might be something HR could, create or influence, is how do we feel confident and effective training and teaching and experiential learning with remote people? How do I bring them along for those experiences? How do I share screens and see what they're doing and how they're progressing on an engagement? How do I give feedback in a remote environment? I can't wait till you're sitting, to me face to face. Renee and I can give feedback to each other. We're typically on video, but we'll share back and forth. Hey, here's what's working. Hey, I'm not sure about this. Can we talk about this? And we'll share screens and we'll talk through it and we'll negotiate, or we'll share our thought process. But that might not be as intuitive for many people. And so if we can talk about how to do that in like real life scenarios, we could do some case studies and some role play, of the different kind of situations. So learning in a remote environment and teaching people how to get effective at delivering learning programs, delivering feedback, doing that on the job coaching and learning, and just providing those opportunities for people to get good at that.
Yes, for sure, Tamera. Well, and those poor career managers who don't know what to do with their career manager meetings, another learning that we could do for them, or skill building, is to teach them that kind of stuff, like hold roundtables for our career managers to say, today we're going to talk for 20 minutes about how to share screens and how to convey information when you can't be together in person. And Tamera, we want firms to figure out how to do that, not just for their remote team members, but also for people who just can't be together. Well, clients, right? But also, if you're working across offices, you can't always be physically together. So these skills, boy, if we could master them as career managers or as leaders in the firm, they are going to pay huge dividends for us to get, to be able to eke more effectiveness and efficiency out of this model that we've created.
Well, and I don't know that it's even the HR professionals delivering the training. We can identify the need. And Renee, you've been so effective with that team over there. We're going to have a career manager huddle, or we're going to have a partner or manager huddle, and we're going to talk about what you've been doing and how to translate it. And then we can
get the lunch and learn, Tamera.
The whole idea. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, so here's another lunch and learn that I think we need is for our remote people, to teach them how to reach in. Yes. So it does need to be a two-way street. And that's what I wanted to pull that lady under my wing today. I did in chat, and I taught, but I'm hoping she'll reach out to me to ask for more strategies so we can chat about what she could be doing, how she can, like we have that little script in around networking that we offer to people about, hey, listen, we've been working together on engagements, but I don't really know you that well. And so I wondered if we could schedule 15 minutes to just chat and get to know each other a little bit better. And you're going to get a lot of yeses when you send out that script. I mean, people are busy, but who doesn't like to talk about themselves and share about who they are and learn a little bit more about you? So I think that would pay huge dividends too. And, then you would really capitalize on, from both sides, building these stronger relationships with the remote team.
Well, and in a remote environment, this isn't probably just even dedicated remote people, but, creating that visibility, like you said, across offices, or, we might not be in the office at the same time. So we're really not always, working at the same place at the same time together. When we're working remote, using video, chat, being engaged, commenting on what people are saying, asking questions, contributing, hey, here's what I saw, or here's what I experienced. And that creates visibility for you, and then two-way dialogue, like what you were doing with that young woman. And then that becomes an easy way to make a connection and say, hey, Renee, I think we should talk offline about this. I would love to connect with you and, go further on it. And just, again, teaching people how to use that in our technology, setting that we have, so that we can facilitate that. And all of this translates to client skills, by the way.
Exactly. And the blended environment and hybrid, and people working sometimes from home and sometimes from the office. There's so many ways to capitalize on it.
So I'm not sure. I think we could probably, generate, more ideas, but hopefully this gets the ideas flowing about, paying attention to, and maybe we need to re-elevate this idea, of remote, our remote team members. Oh, I know one other one I have to, throw in here is the holidays are coming up. And we're going to have holiday events and parties and, just different things, might be happening. And we need to make sure we are super strategic, identify that remote OMP and say, how is this going to feel to the remote people when you read this, or we have an announcement, or did we think about, as we're hiring remote people, what is our strategy around bringing them in to the holiday parties, and maybe once during the summer, and then be strategic about that. If we're investing in them coming in, making those connections live, scheduling people to be able to meet with people internally in the firm, go out on a client meeting, maybe do some community, work that we're involved in so that they can get that experience. We can be super intentional about it, but, we're going to be having different communications around the end of the year, and office closures, and, holidays and parties, and maybe secret Santas. I don't know what else, right? But how do we make sure we're inclusive? And so,
and secret Santas you could do with the whole team. You could cross-pollinate between the remote team and the in-person people. That would be so easy. And then, Tamera, I'm just thinking, like, maybe we have some sort of remote holiday party. I don't know. And we play games. I'm thinking about Camp Convergence that we did this summer, and we had all those silly games, and you could sing Christmas carols and really just have a goofy, fun time with a remote holiday party. So
yes, for sure. So as you can see, we could continue this list. So hopefully you get some ideas, and, we want to empower you as HR professionals. Where can you engineer these ideas? And again, you don't have to be the deliverer, but gosh, you could be the coach, you could be the strategist, and you could rally the resources and be the one that's paying attention and saying, what are we doing to make sure we're paying attention to not only remote people, but how we're working remote? Because you're right, Renee, we've got, people working in different places at different times, or we have multiple offices. We just have so many different scenarios today. It's just important for us to revisit it. So thanks for the conversation, and thank you all for being here with us. And we will see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tamera.
Thank you.